I agree. 100%.
No. It's 5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, March 9th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. here. Carl, give me a roll call vote for attendance, please.
Councilmember Remley.
Here.
Ronayne.
Here.
Lunsman.
Here.
Reif.
Here.
Johnson. Bunceness.
Present.
Olson. Here. Rux.
Here.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Here, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, I'll need a motion to approve last week's minutes for the meeting of March 2nd.
Moved. Second.
A motion, Bunceness, and a second from Rux. Carl, give me a roll call vote. All votes tonight will be roll call due to Mike being on the telephone.
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson. Aye. Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye. Motion does carry. No one has signed up to speak at open forum, so we'll move along to the consent calendar. Possible approval of items A through C. Can I get a motion to approve those items?
Moved. Second.
Got a motion from Lunsman and a second from Reif. Does anyone have anything to contribute before we take a vote on those items? Otherwise, Carl, give me a vote, please.
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson. Aye. Bunceness.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we'll move along to new business. First, we've got ordinance amending Chapter 10 Aviation of the City Code regarding permitted drone flight areas and the penalty classification. Possible first reading of the ordinance. Ron is here to speak to us about that here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. If the council will recall, back in December, I was asked to do an update on the drone ordinance to see where we were at with recent FAA action on its unmanned aerial craft throughout the nation. And during that conversation, or at the result of that conversation, it was a request by the council to propose an amendment to add the Moxon Creek Soccer Complex as a permitted drone flight area. And what you see before you in the ordinance is a change to 10-2 sub 5 to include the Moxon Creek Soccer Complex. And also within that was a housekeeping change consistent with the recent city code recodification at 10-4 to just pull out specific language and make it more general. And these are the requested changes and amendments for this. I would also at this time, if the council wants, or at the conclusion of this issue, could give the council a further update on the drone ordinance following a conversation I had with senior attorney and regional counsel for the FAA regarding our drone ordinance.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Ronayne and a second from Rux. So in the order of events, you would say that it'd be best to do that upon taking the vote? Okay. Does anyone have anything as it relates to questions for Ron in relation to the changes that were being voted upon here tonight?
My only question would be for Rich. Any issues with this? Drones at Melgar?
I looked through this one.
Okay, that's it.
Sounds good. Carl, why don't you give us a roll call vote?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye. Motion does carry. Ron, why don't you tell us what you learned on your telephone call?
I had a very pleasant conversation with Jonathan Cross, senior attorney for airport certification out of Washington, D.C., and a James Tagmeyer, regional counsel out of the greater Chicago area, I think, or district office or something to that effect. Regarding their review of the Aberdeen drone ordinance, I had requested a written legal review, but I was informed that they do not provide those and that our conversation would be their review of our ordinance. Just a quick reminder to the folks who had listened back in December, the primary issue we were dealing with was a notion called preemption, which is where one law is superior over another law, or one jurisdiction is superior over another jurisdiction. In this case, it would be the federal government, FAA, whether its pronouncement, its actions in this area preempt any action by a municipality, and basically the consensus from everyone involved in the conversation was that it depends. And there is a huge gray line between what the FAA claims is their exclusive area, which is regulation of airspace, and then what they concede are local and state powers for police and nuisance, public nuisance. So if one were to go through our ordinance, you would see that a lot of the types of conduct that are prohibited tend to reach into both. And they were clearly supportive of the city in some of the sections of its ordinance. In others, they felt that there could be preemption arguments raised. It would depend on the facts, and that is consistent with their general hesitance to claim out-and-out preemption of all of this area. And that is nothing that is new. What I wanted to point out to the council were two interesting comments by those gentlemen. One is that they are not the preemption police. The FAA does not intend to go around the nation and sue cities for their drone ordinances. They feel that the cities are best equipped to deal with these based upon the facts that come before them, and that any litigation that there might be would be by individual citizens. But the FAA itself is not going to go around and tell the city of Aberdeen or any other city that their drone ordinance is unlawful. The point that they wanted to leave me with is that they are continuing to work in this area, and they are hopeful to have some definitive rulings in 2020 still, but certainly in 2021. And I'm not sure if definitive to them would be definitive to us, but I'm hopeful. I would much rather be able to defer to the FAA on these kinds of things and say that they've addressed it. They claim that they're getting there. They're going through this comment process. One of the points that they wanted to raise is that under the 2016 Act, and I'm not going to say it's the Reauthorization Act, it's actually a Public Safety Act for the FAA, there is the ability of municipalities, as they see the rules fleshing out, to apply for a fixed structure restriction, which is basically we could submit application to the FAA, identify those kinds of structures within our community that we want to have drones restricted to and how close they can get. So that was a positive. You'll notice, for example, part of our ordinance, which I can pull up here. Whoops. I'll just use an example here. Subparagraph 13, see that within 500 feet of any electric generating facility, or sub 12 over a school, swimming pool. Those are the kinds of things that they felt municipalities will have the ability shortly, they hope, to be able to submit an application for fixed structures that drones would be prohibited from flying in a certain distance to. So I guess I saw that as generally a positive. Again, they were non-committal as to their timeframes, but the short takeaway for us is that there's nothing in our current ordinance that we shouldn't keep in, and we should continue to ride this. And I will apprise the council if I see any definitive movement on the part of the FAA, so that we can revisit this and if necessary, shore it back or even repeal it if that's what's required.
Thank you, Ron. If no one has any questions as it relates to that conversation, we'll move right along to new business item number B. Letter B, I guess I should say. Hearing on the new retail on-off sale wine and cider license for Levity Entertainment LLC at 130 South Centennial Street. Possible approval of the retail on-off sale wine cider license for Levity at the address mentioned before. Can I get a motion for that, please?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion from Rux and a second from Remley. Does anyone have anything? Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got an item to establish a working group to develop a short and long-term deer management plan for the city of Aberdeen. Possible approval to support the establishment of a working group to develop the deer management plan for the city. Lynn, what can you tell us about your plan for that?
Okay, actually, there are five municipalities throughout the state of South Dakota that have deer management plans, and that is Sioux Falls, Pierre, Rapid City, Hot Springs, and Custer that I know of. By adopting a deer management plan, some of the objectives actually are to establish goals and develop public media relations regarding goals of deer management, where we can look at and determine the number of deer that's socially acceptable within the city and that can coexist with the local human population. And this working group would hold several public meetings for general public to provide initial input. We would invite Sportsmen Against Hunger in to find out about their program. And then it would be the hopes that this working group would come up with a draft plan to present to the council that the council may accept. Because as it stands now, basically our deer management does not go beyond chemical repellents or fencing or scare tactics. And so if we were to go into a deer management program with authorization through game fish and parks, we could do depredation hunts in the future if in fact we felt that was necessary. What has happened is anytime that we have substantial snowfall, it seems as though the deer population comes into corporate limits. And with that, then we start getting calls for property damage. And by doing a deer management plan, we would actually go out and survey the numbers every fall and then as the winter went on to determine if in fact we're seeing a migration coming in to the corporate limits to determine then how to handle the problem. As of now, we don't have that ability, and I think this would be a good tool, especially if we continue to get large snowfalls, because there is substantial amount of damage being done to properties throughout the city. I actually did a survey in 2014 where I surveyed all the subdivisions that were kind of on the corporate limits that were adjacent to what I would call the corporate boundary line. It was adjacent to corn and whatever crops that were adjacent to those properties. And when I did that survey, when I got the survey back, I was kind of surprised by the numbers, but I wasn't really surprised. But in my survey, there were a lot of people that wanted the deer to be left alone, and then there were a lot of people that wanted the city to do some strong depredation hunts to eliminate the deer. Hopefully with the management plan, we can look at both sides of this and at least have options for the future, where right now we really don't have any way of managing the deer.
So it looks like we're setting out for a motion to support the establishment of the group and then perhaps also establish an individual from this council to
Yes.
represent the group. Sounds great. Can I get a motion to create this group?
Mr. Shonneman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion to support that.
Sounds great. And then I'll take Ronayne's voice as the second in this one. And then, Mike, would you also be willing to volunteer to be a part of the group, or would you like to let someone else do that?
I would, unless someone is more interested, I will.
Sounds great. I
do
don't
you
think
judge
anyone's going to fight you for it.
How do you figure that out?
Smooth.
So we've got a motion from Councilman Olson and a second from Ronayne. Carl, why don't you give us a roll call vote to establish the working group?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye. Motion does carry.
You should know it is my goal to get this plan done before I leave, and so you'll have it to work with next fall, if necessary, and next winter.
Great.
Thank you, Lynn. And thank you, Mike. Next, we'll move right along to the request from the police department to surplus 7 automated external defibrillators for donation to churches. Possible approval to surplus the automated external defibrillators for donation to St. Mary's Church and the First Presbyterian, First Lutheran, and New Life Fellowship. Dave, no, there is no Dave here tonight. You're standing in. Go ahead. What can you tell us about the program?
In late 2019, Helmsley Trust out of Sioux Falls replaced all external defibrillators in law enforcement vehicles throughout the state of South Dakota, approximately 3,500 AEDs. With that, the police department has 18 total that we're phasing out. I believe the chief checked with all department heads within the city to see if any other agencies or departments within the city needed any more. I don't believe he got any responses back. In a recent active shooter training that he did with a number of local churches, he discussed the possibility of getting rid of these. And we had several express interest in Aberdeen and kind of the surrounding areas. And that's what brings us to these today, is to find a good use for them. They're still all in great operational condition. And they're just AEDs that have been replaced with a newer, upgraded model.
Sounds great. Seems like a great purpose for these things.
Move approval. Second.
And a motion from Bunces and a second from Ronayne. If no one has any questions, Carl. Oh,
Actually, I didn't
Ronayne.
second it, but I do have a question.
You did not second.
I think Mark did. But I do have a question. I don't have anything against Britain, but did we check with other Aberdeen charitable groups to see if they wanted any of these before we awarded them to Britain?
Outside the religious aspect, I don't know. I know it was mainly churches that were asked, or that this was expressed to them. But I don't know of any other charitable groups that have been notified about these in particular.
Other Aberdeen churches?
Yes. Yep. In this list, there's St. Mary's and New Life that are getting a few of them. And I actually have a list at the police department with about 2 or 3 more that we just haven't got to yet. So more than likely, all 11 will probably, or the 11 remaining will probably be in front of the council within the next couple of weeks.
Sounds good. So that was 11 in addition to the 7 that we're distributing here tonight, you're saying?
There will be, when we get to that point, I think the chief will bring the
Sounds
rest of the
great.
information back at that point.
So we've got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Mark Remley. Carl, on that one. If no one has anything further, I will ask you to take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the bid recommendation for annual concrete work done. Possible approval to award the bid to CWF Masonry in the amount of $143,208.45 to authorize the city manager and finance officer to sign the necessary documents. Robin, what can you tell us about that concrete work?
We had 4 bids. You have the bid tab in front of you on the screen. CWF, who has performed this type of work for us in the past, has done fine as far as timing and the quality of work. We recommend award to them, and as you can see, Stu is the high bidder. So that's a good thing, that we're getting good competitive bids. Our bid estimates typically, or engineers' estimates, are typically based on the previous year, and it shows that we had 4 very good competitive bids. So.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Ronayne and a second from Bunceness. Does anyone have any questions or statements on the concrete work? Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote to accept the bid recommendation.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we'll move along to the payment request for the water treatment facility groundwater expansion soil borings for the hydrogeologic investigation to Trout Companies. Possible approval of payment 1 in the amount of $69,116.40 and payment 2, final payment in the amount of $7,679.60 to the same company. Robin, what can you tell us about those payments?
The company Trout did provide the services for us. Bit unusual to be doing the first and second request in the same bid item, but they have completed the work, and so we recommend approval of their payment to the 90% and the following 10%. They provided boring locations in a number of places north of town, and at this point, we have not found the sweet spot that we're looking for, but we will continue to go with that, with the investigation, and try to come up with something that will get us more water for our future needs.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you, Robin. We've got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Ronayne. Carl, why don't you give me a roll call vote to make those two payments, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson. Bunceness.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the city's share of oversizing infrastructure for the various subdivisions. Possible approval of payment in the amount of $235,319.41 to JN Development LLC for oversizing sanitary, storm, and water infrastructure related to the Happy North subdivision, JN subdivision, and Dakota Estate subdivision. Robin, you're on the plate again.
This is one of the interesting parts about having development in one area. The oversizing costs become fairly sizable in order to make sure that we're positioned to be able to do things in the future and to make sure that we don't box ourselves into a corner where we can't grow any further. And so at the time, and this goes back, I think, 11, 12 years ago, where we had the discussion with JN Development about making sure that we put in larger pipe. They are finally billing us for pipe that was put in probably 10 or 11 years ago now, oversizing a holding pond, oversizing water and sewer pipe, oversizing a stormwater lift station to handle the additional flow once certain areas develop beyond the boundaries of JN Development. So we recommend approval of this. It's all part of making sure that we can grow appropriately. So
Move approval. Second.
Got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Rux on it. And so those are all the developments north of town. All three of the ones listed were essentially adjacent to one another. How much more space do you think that we've got in terms of the infrastructure? I mean, how much further could those things continue on?
there's a couple hundred acres more that we can develop off of that infrastructure now.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Carl?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson. Aye. Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got amendment number 1 to the agreement with Helms and Associates for AIP 3-4600141-2020. Reconstruction of the General Aviation Apron Project. Possible approval and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement with Helms and Associates. Rich, you've already got yourself in the appropriate position to tell us all about that.
So when we first started working on this project a couple of years ago, the FAA encouraged us to put this project together, being the general aviation ramp reconstruction and taxiway geometry correction. Put that together under one package because it would be easier to fund that. About a year ago, they decided it wouldn't be easier to fund that, so they want us to break the two into two different packages. So basically what this is taking the costs that have already been expended and putting those into the geometry correction and the general aviation ramp. So it's one project has become two, if that makes sense.
But the total is still the same.
The total is still the same.
Thank you, Rich. Can I get a motion to make that amendment to the agreement?
Moved. Second.
Motion from Bunceness and a second from Remley. Does anyone have any questions for Rich since he's here? Otherwise, Carl, give me a vote on that.
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson. Aye. Bunceness.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got payment request for the work on airport projects. Payment 19 for the master layout plan to Helms and Associates for the amount of $6,731.51. Payment number 17, taxiway C to Helms for $63.18 payment number 5 for the general aviation apron to Helms and Associates for $2,888.62. Possible approval and authorization. Rich, since you're here, tell us about those payments.
And these are continuing costs on the 3 open projects that we do have. Master plan, layout plan is going along really good. Taxiway Charlie, we're simply waiting on weather to go on that, and then the general aviation project, which we plan on starting in 2022.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion from Bunceness and a second from Rife to make those 3 payments. Carl, why don't you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson. Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Rich, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Council.
Next, we've got bills, the approval of the bill list for March 9th, 2020, as you see listed on your screen. Can I get a motion to pay the bills?
Moved. Second.
Motion from Ronayne and a second from Rife.
I think it was David.
You sound like everybody over there today. Rob, sorry about that. And a motion from Lunsman and a second from Rife. Does anyone have any questions as it relates to the bills? Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson. Bunceness,
Abstain.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Abstain.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Abstain. Motion does carry. The bills will be paid. Next, we'll move along to the city manager's report. Lynn, what have you got for
I
us?
have nothing this evening, but thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we will take a vote to move into executive session to discuss a couple of off-the-record items. So we'll have to clear the room for the people that are not involved directly in that executive session. We appreciate you guys coming in.
I move executive session.
Second.
A motion from Ronayne and a second from Bunceness. Carl, give me a roll call vote to move ourselves into executive session.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Olson, Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. We'll consider this to be an executive session once people have had an opportunity to clear the room.
Thanks, Op.